I'm throwing my chicken away.
Moving, we'll do, does anybody have any Rotary business before we turn it over? Okay, good. Not good, but great. Moving, we'll do the honors of introducing Prince.
Thank you, President Chris, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ruben.
It is said that water and oil don't mix together, and the same can be said about youth and wisdom. So, when we come across a situation where a young man is also wise, it's worth listening to him. So today I have invited someone who is as young as one can be, and as wise as one can't be. And there are a couple of very simple examples, like when I met him for the first time, I had a knee problem, I had a back problem, I still continue to have it. And when I met him, I said, this guy is going to treat me? I mean, he probably will dance over my back, because that's what Keshav, my son, would do when I asked him, oh, help me with my back. But, funnily, a person, my son, Kesh, whose only view about life and about health is to walk like this, came across Prince and realized that balance is far more valuable than strength. So when Kesh went back impressed, I thought, this is a guy I want to invite to my club and ask him to share his views on what is balance, what is body movement. And I found him absolutely practical, and I have printed out an excerpt from his blog. He has been in Australia, there is a connection there, Melbourne, not right now. And there are many fine things about him, and I have met his girlfriend with whom he's going to get married, Kelly, and I thought together they make a very fine couple. They have a lot of contribution to make to the society in general and to Sarasota in particular. So I have taken the privilege of inviting him, and let's listen to what he has to say. So please join me in welcoming Prince Matharu.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
It doesn't work, you can just put it away.
Do I need it?
No.
Okay, perfect.
You can talk.
This suits me better now. So thank you for the kind words. My name is Prince. My background is I'm an international nomad. So I was born in Africa. I've been moving around, living out of boxes for all of my life, basically. But
No? Okay, then you may have to use...
That one might, look at that thing maybe work.
I'm
But you do have to hold it like close, yeah, just like that.
This is my Justin Bieber moment.
Who here knows Justin Bieber?
This is, well, I should have started by saying I'm thankful and grateful to be alive, because people that have similar names are dying from flu. Yeah, so cutting my background short, throughout my travels, I had privilege and good fortune to see people from different walks of life, different cultures, and what made me curious was different perspectives they had on life, how they used movement to be healthy, how they related to defining what healthy is, their mindset over health and well-being. And because I lived in third world countries, Eastern countries, and Western world, similarly, I felt that there is a need for publishing the requirement of finding balance and redefining some of the definitions we go by, mainly how we relate to strength and health and well-being. So that's going to be sort of the premise today, and I'll share some of the strategies that I have applied from my experience, which is predominantly in different sports. I've studied a lot of movement systems, I do yoga, Pilates, and manual therapy. So the framework for my day job is I'm a structural therapist, so I combine manual therapy with movement analysis and know how to move. My analogy for every client that walks in either it is a chronic back injury, cervical fusions, pelvic issues, to a high-level athlete, a golfer. As we look at their acute chronic issues, it's equally important to pay attention to how they're using their body, because we all live in a body. We have no choice. So the analogy I often use is it's like having a car, but not knowing how to drive. So we're all taking fast corners, coming out faster from the corners in that car, hitting trees, etc., and then we wait to go to see a mechanic, and then the expectation is the mechanic will put me back together, and in this instance I'm the mechanic. But then we leave the mechanic's shop still not knowing how to drive. So therefore my framework includes an equal emphasis on both elements. The manual therapy aspect, which I use for those who are familiar with Rolfing principles. So I use connective tissue work, which solely looks at how a structure, a body is interacting with gravity, where the stress is, where certain patterns are, resolving those patterns through table work and connective tissue manipulation, but at the same time making a point to take the time to educate the person about their body and empowering them to use their body differently. Which brings me back to what are some of the movement strategies. So I'll open up the question to our audience. When I say movement, what are some of the things that come to mind? Walking? Yes. What else? And it's very personal to people. So there is no blanket approach, there is no right or wrong. It is an individual thing. And so yes, I'm asking for personal experiences. How do we define, how do we relate to movement? So we've got walking, dancing, one of my favorites. What else? Swimming, excellent. Yeah. So it's always interesting because I've been doing this for a while. Whenever I ask this question, it's rarely people say workout. Yeah. But at the same time, it's always some sort of fun related activity that the person enjoys doing. Yet, I've seen it again and again, most of us rely on a workout, and that's our primary strategy to age well. Yet the workout, although the literal meaning of workout you would think would be something that is functional and we do outside, it's become working out in a box, in a gym, with machines that decide your range of motion, and we're doing bicep curls, yet we never use that motion in our life. Because if I'm doing bicep curls in the gym, if I walked over and lifted my cup like this, you're all going to think I'm a strange person. You probably already think I'm strange, but that's okay. So it becomes more important to shed light on that perspective that we have, that is there a gap in how we are going about strategizing our physical activity and the physical strategy we have, and is it really fitting with what we're trying to achieve? Either it's aging well, or for an athlete to perform a certain activity, is it nourishing the body? One of my favorite sayings is that we all respond to stress, and part of our responsibility as human beings is to find the perfect dose of stress. Yeah, so either it's emotional stress, either it's physical stress. We're all responsible to find a balance, because it's the dose that is the deciding factor between medicine and oil. So we all have that responsibility, and I'll share some of my thoughts around what has worked again in deciding that and going forward. Last point I want to make about what I call the staple menu of fitness world, and where the paradigm needs to change is we rely on the experts too much. Either it's your personal trainer or a person like me, but we're sort of moving away from living in a body ourselves. We're moving away from taking the time to understand what my body needs today, have clearly defined goals, that if I'm a golfer, what do I need to do? What are the movement patterns that I'm doing? But even removing that genre of movement that you like doing, but narrowing it down to saying, how do I use my body day to day, because that's more important. So later on we're going to do a quick drill that will shine some light on how do you stand, for instance, because standing posture is what I take into whatever I do, whatever movement I do. So it almost becomes important to see what my preferences are as I'm moving around. Because if I have a hip shooting this way and that's how I like walking, chances are that I'm going to incur some injury in that hip because there is too much load onto it. So I'll explain that in a while. And last point on finding balance is we all have labels. I did powerlifting, I played rugby when I was younger, and I currently do a lot of kickboxing. So it's a constant battle for me not to find, not to live under that label, if you will, constantly. So I see it all the time. A power lifter or a weights guy, if that were the label, is constantly aiming to lift more and more weight and pays less attention to things like their flexibility, the cost of just being a weights guy. And we see it in the opposite parallel as well. A yoga person is solely focusing on getting their leg even higher and higher, has no strength. But as a human being, we all need balance. We all need flexibility, we all need joint range of motion, and we all need strength. So what I'm offering is, when we think about our health and our well-being, there are critical questions that I need to ask. Is one, whatever my current routine is, either it's walking or swimming or a workout in the gym, is it helping me age well? And if yes, then how is it? And if it's not, then what do I need to do to ensure that that's contributing to my day-to-day life? Is it nourishing me on a physical level, on an emotional level? And the example I use is a squat. So I work with a lot of powerlifters, and when they're going under the bar to lift that 400-pound squat, there is so much prep that goes into it. You know, their mates around them are hooing and eyeing them, and they're like, yo, come on, let's do it. And they pay so much attention to get under a bar, and then they squat down, and it's like a whole event, yeah? But then the same person has no idea still how to lower their center of gravity. Because to me, sitting in and out of a chair is a squat. Sitting on a toilet seat is a squat. Getting in and out of a car is a squat. So the bigger question is your workout teaching you how to move, period? Because the 3 sets of 8 that someone's doing in the gym is not as relevant, is not as important of getting in and out of a chair. Or how do I walk? Because if I'm walking 1,000 steps a day, that's 7,000 reps a week. So all of a sudden it becomes more important to question, am I walking correctly? Yeah, where is my balance? Am I loading one hip more than the other when I walk? Do I have good ankle range of motion? Is my neck too forward when I walk, etc., etc.? Asking ourselves questions like, what's my lifestyle predominantly? So most of us sit a lot, which is, you know, in this forward flex position. So if this is my predominant pattern that I'm feeding day to day, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, then the nervous system is going to adapt, and it's going to add strength so that my body can do this for longer periods of time. So we have to ask those questions and step back away from having satisfaction in just doing the workout, which has become a tick on the list, and be accountable and ask those good questions. Am I nourishing my body? Is my workout helping me age better? And the example I was going to give with the squat is, from my understanding throughout my travels in Africa, I see a lot of these people just drop down and sit and have conversations here, because that's what squat is meant to be. It's a resting position. But also professionally, I use this to test. This gives us a lot of information about that person's hip, the person's spine, etc., etc. And the last point is, we rarely come down and touch the floor. I see 30-year-olds that come to my clinic that are highly active, they go to CrossFit gyms, etc., but then they drop their keys and they sort of stare at the keys going, oh man, that is a long way down. You know, and then you start and you see them pick it up and it's like, oh. So stop doing CrossFit. You're learning nothing about yourself. Do you know what I mean? So we are now, again, so that is a person who's an example of they're living underneath that label of I'm a CrossFit person. So the bigger question is your daily training helping you, whatever goal you have for yourself? And I believe we all should have a responsibility, an overarching goal to take more accountability of aging well. That's number one. So that's the overall question. Now for the strategy part, or a couple of things. The document or the article we circulated has few explanations and further links, etc. The key ingredients that I have found that have worked and helped a lot of my clients, things I use myself on a daily basis. But we're going to try them out. Yeah, so if you will. So the number one, if I may invite all of you to stand for me. Wherever you are, and you don't have to do it. So, as you stand, if I may invite to take a scan, I call it the airport scan, because I've been to so many airports. Every time I go to the airport, there is a guy who comes and does this, yeah, back and down, back and forth. So, let's start there. So, let's take our awareness and start from the feet and start going up. The things you're noticing are, as I said earlier, where is your balance? Where is your center of mass? Are you living too much in your heels, or is your weight too much forward in front of your feet? Is your pelvis committed to one particular side, i.e., is your pelvis shooting forward like this, going backwards like this, going to one side or the other side? When I stand in public, I often do this. So what does that do for me? Yeah. Secondly, or on top of that, how deep is your breath? Yeah. It's often a hugely missed link in our PE education or your conversation with your personal trainer. Is that breath element. I still go to my gym and I'm like, but I never bring my nervous system down. I'm not really trying to understand the change that I'm going through, because breath is what massages my spine. For those who are familiar with anatomy, the rib cage goes into the vertebrae. So every breath that I take and my rib cage expands, it's actually decompressing my spine. So have a note of how shallow your breath is, or is your rib cage expanding three-dimensionally as you stand there. And the last part is, are your shoulders height? Is one shoulder more height than the other? Are your shoulders eating your neck? Where is your neck? Is your neck going forward, backwards? Are you looking at the world sideways? Those are all the things. So I invite you to take this practice and do it 2-3 times a day. This is giving you vital information, because those preferences, in my experience, are the leading cause of chronic issues. As we were saying, if I constantly sit in a chair on one hip or stand on that hip, then that hip is more probable that hip is going to get injured, or the other one perhaps, because it's atrophied, because I don't load it anymore. Yeah?
Don't you think it's better that we have a partner with whom we do this exercise? Because I'm standing here, as you are talking, I'm realizing, okay, maybe I'm a bit stooped and so on. But someone who is in front of me can easily spot.
Absolutely, yes. We judge each other together. That's better. So in your own time, maybe when you go home today, share this, and then you can try it. You can do it in front of a mirror, and that's another thing that I talk to my clients extensively about. That
can we sit now?
Yes, please. Have a take a seat. I'm sorry. I was going to say squat. That's another thing that I talk. How do you do your health check on a daily basis? If you're anything like me, I stand in front of a mirror and I look at myself and I think, oh man, I'm still ugly. Okay, next thing. I look at, for a guy, I'm looking at my pecs and bicep, etc. But most often, for most people, we're looking at the mirror muscles. Yeah. We're looking at the front of the body, ignoring the biggest fact that we're all conditioned and bound by gravity, which is constantly pulling us down. Yeah. So the only thing holding me up is actually my back body. Yeah. So I need to have stronger back. I need to have stronger hamstring, which is interesting because most clients that I see have a very negative relationship with their back body. They're always saying, man, my neck hurts, my back always hurts, my glutes are tight, my hamstrings are tight. Yeah? So it's interesting that that ties in with the level of chronic disease we have. Yeah? And those physical issues in particular. The last couple of tips, I have joint mobility and soft tissue mobility. Again, you don't have to rely on experts. I encourage you all to get up every morning and start rotating your joints whichever way they go and however much they rotate. So start moving your hands, start moving your elbows, go to your shoulders, draw circles with your neck, because don't wait till you have to go to a physio or a chiro. Yeah? And similar principle goes for balance. Yeah? Physical balance, not just overall balance with your routine that you're trying to create, or the idea of having a maintenance routine that nourishes you. You can hold on to a wall and start working your balance. You know, go shift your weight from one leg to the other, and you can find a lot of YouTube progressions. This is why YouTube's great. And lastly, and most importantly, as I was saying, have a breathing practice. Yeah, I have phone reminders on my phone every hour to remind myself to take 10 deep breaths, because we're all busy and life is stressful. So last thing I want to do is, whatever my workout is, to go and add more stress to an already stressful life. So I'm trying to find things to nourish myself. Either it's go for a pleasant walk, remind myself to take deep breaths frequently, etc. So that's my message, and the overall message is learn how to drive. Don't just rely on the mechanics. We all live in a body. It's the biggest favor you can do to yourself. Thank you very much. Yes, please, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I've been a phys ed teacher for 35 years. I've taught everything from cycling, skiing, and tennis. And the most satisfying course for me and my students was yoga, because it was very preventative, and you know, you ask the student to get into their bodies,
Yes.
and to be conscious,
Yes.
and to get into their thinking.
Yes.
And then that's about the best way to become conscious of your mechanics and how you're standing out.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And I studied kinesiology and biomechanics extensively. I, for years, even when I was competing as an athlete, only had a very mechanical relationship with my body. And there's a lot of research that's coming out. We've run a great article recently that MS, Parkinson, Alzheimer's patients are now made to do mindful walking, very, very slow. And the research is showing the ganglia in the brain, the frontal cortex, which is autopilot mode, is responding differently to it. And now the brain is changing the neural pathway. So these systems that's been around, 5,000 years, there's definitely some validity in it. I stand here as a representative of 250-year-old science, although that's important, but we must limit ourselves, to just one particular way. That's what I learned from my travels. Being a very scientifically minded person, I'm constantly allowing myself to open. That was the reason I went and studied yoga, because I was like, and yes, it's a combination. I'm not trying to be too strong for my own good or too flexible for my own good. I'm trying to not live from those labels. That's what I was saying before. We must find balance. As a human being, for me to sit and rotate and do the things that I want to do, go for a walk with my partner, or take the dog out for a walk, whatever that is, we all need good joint range of motion and strength. Yeah, so we have to create that staple dose for us, wherever we are, whatever injuries you have. And that's a better question to ask, rather than kind of going to this staple buffet by fitness industry and just sitting on a machine doing things. That's my biggest thing.
With people who work with computers all the time, although most of us actually are on a laptop anyway, we now have standing desks.
Yes.
And quite a few consulting companies have also adopted, I mean, they give the choice that I can lift the entire, like raise the desk and I can stand and work for 8 hours.
Yes.
So do you have some comments, some thoughts on that?
I think too much of anything is bad. You know.
But is it
Yes.
standing bad?
Absolutely, because there is, from my understanding, and old knowledge is incomplete, and so is mine. There is no real good way to sit. Yeah, you can sit on your sit bones and have a proper spine, but after a while, because it's a tension-driven activity, you can't really sit erect for too long. If for a second we agreed that there is a good, so yes, standing is better because it's creating a more movement-rich environment, because I can shift my weight, I can stretch my hamstrings, I can look at the computer differently. Because I'm standing, I can extend my spine to stretch, whereas those options aren't available to me if I'm desk-bound. So I definitely think it's a one step in the positive direction, but again, it comes back to your personal, individual accountability. My last years at the office, I was taking 5-minute breaks every hour. And if my manager had a problem with that, then that's a separate discussion. But that 5-minute break was just to stretch my fingers, go outside, maybe drink some water, take a couple of deep breaths, and stretch. Because again, going back and remembering the idea that your body is a database. It's the nervous system is collecting movement patterns that you're feeding. So if you're saying that to the body, sit here for 8 hours, it's going to change you, so that you can do this for longer periods of time. So just by intervening, and every hour, for instance, we work in an office, taking that 5-minute break, and have it in your calendar. So it pops up and goes, okay, move the other way. You know, rotate your spine. Stagnation is what's killing us. So having any type of movement strategy that's on the opposite direction is super beneficial.
All right, for those of us who have maybe a longer leg, which I understand that's quite a number of us, I mean, Ruben reminds me, standing is not, the way I stand is not good, because this leg is longer, so I'm always compensating on the other leg. So I don't know if you have, I mean, I've gotten recommendations over the years, but what do you think?
One, I think it's an individual case. So what I do in my practice is we are training everyone to have a better, more intelligent dialogue collectively. So it's not anyone's responsibility to have the answers. But if you were to come see me, the very first question we're asking is, why is the leg longer? So is it just a skeletal issue? Because I've seen those as well. Just the skeletal, the bone is longer, yeah? Or there has been an injury to the ankle, which is now changing how you use the ankle and the bone above it, which causes the disparity between the length. Or I've also seen there is a muscle called QL, or the pelvic muscle, that sort of, the hip hikers. So if that is tight, it's going to change the way you hold yourself. So that could be an issue. So that's the starting point to resolve from that and go to the root cause. But there are other orthopedic solutions as well. If the bone there is a disparity in the bone, perhaps we need to have something in the shoe. Perhaps we need to retrain the core and how you stand, etc. There is a big piece on just standing for me, because, as I said, that's what we take into movement. So there's a lot of dialogue in my practice to go over the educational piece of how do I create a stable pelvis, because this is the hinge. You know, this is the human hinge. My lower body and upper body attaches here. So I need to have better access, better control over here. Either I'm an athlete, I need to have more power in my hips, or I'm just, you know, weekend warrior like me, or member of the general public, because that's where my spine goes, that's where my legs goes. How do I create a stable pelvis and stronger pelvis is going to be another key component to that conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I think hopefully a lot of us will now kind of at least be aware of this.
Look how you're standing.
Yeah, because I have this leg is longer. This hip is totally screwed up, but you know. I do have orthotics, by the way, but not only in my country. All right, one more favor. Could you? Oh, yeah, that would be probably yours. could you pull the winning 50/50, which we have $3, yes. those are good. The last three numbers.
It's 172.
Ooh, that's close.
172.
Great work. All right,
Hey,
Howard.
Howard, right.
Don't spend it all in one place.